Reddit. One of the largest and widely used sites on the internet, claiming over 5 billion visits a month and millions of active users, talking about everything and anything. You can very easily get lost for hours here, scrolling through threads and going down rabbit holes. But as per usual with the internet, there is always a dark side. And today, we're going to be taking the dive into some of the most disturbing rabbit holes I could find on Reddit. There are communities for just about everything you can think of on Reddit, from sidewalks to water to more disturbing stuff, such as the subreddit and community made for discussing one of the most notorious predators to walk among us, and a mystery that has gone unsolved for many years. On June 11th of 2021, Reddit user Corrupted would make a post onto r/unsolved murders, a true crime subreddit dedicated to gathering as much information as possible on cases that were never brought to justice. But due to the contents of the post, many of the community members suggested her to post it into another subreddit, r/Mr. Cruel, a rabbit hole we have gone down already on this channel, but one that still sticks with me to this day. Concerned, scared, and confused. Was I raised by Mr. Cruel? I am the OP of this post, and originally had it posted in r/unsolved murders, but it was suggested that I post it here, as there may be someone out there who could possibly alleviate some of my concerns, or if not, then possibly put me in touch with someone who could help me share this information with the correct authorities. Hi fellow Redditors. Not too sure if this is even where I should be or even if I should be posting this. It's been on my mind for many decades now, at least 30 plus years, and it's always terrified me. Although I have no definitive evidence, the coincidences are just too much. To start with, I am only mentioning all of this because I know it's anonymous, and if it wasn't, then there is no way I would even consider mentioning any of this in a public forum. I grew up in an extremely abusive household. My mother displays narcissistic personality disorder, my stepfather is a pedophile, and his oldest son is an alcoholic, a compulsive liar, and is also a pedophile. Sadly, I know this from first-hand experience, and also know that I am not the only person that was afflicted by their intentions. My mother did nothing about the situation, in fact, often deliberately putting me in compromising positions, leaving me in their custody, or turning a blind eye when she had undeniable evidence that something had occurred. Although this group is about unsolved murders and not other forms of abuse, this will all make sense as it is all intertwined. When I was about 11 years old, I lived in the state of Tasmania in Australia. My eldest stepbrother had moved interstate to Victoria to join the army, and I was just relieved for the break from his presence. When he completed his basic training, my stepfather and my mother went for a trip to Victoria to watch my stepbrother march out, which is a ceremony at the end of their training to signify that they are now full-serving members of the Defense Force. They were gone interstate for approximately a 2-week period. My dates are not 100% accurate, but they were gone from about late August to somewhere mid-September. I remember this clearly because once they came back to Tasmania, they had nothing but praise about mainland Australia, and they wanted to move there. We were packed and ready to move very fast, and were gone in just 2 weeks after their return. We arrived in Melbourne on the 5th of October, 1987. Not long after we moved to Melbourne, there was an awful case on the news about a man who was abducting young girls from their homes and abusing them. One of his last victims that I was aware of was a young girl named Carmen Chan. Although I was young at the time and often ignored whatever stories were on the news of the nighttime, this stuck with me because we often ate dinner with the television on at the same time. Whenever something came on the news about Carmen Chan and the abductor that the media had dubbed Mr. Cruel, my stepfather would snap at me and insist that I shut up and keep quiet while we listened. He would turn the television up louder and became very focused on whatever the news was reporting. Mr. Cruel had abducted a few girls leading up to this point, and had mostly just assaulted them before he left them somewhere where they would be discovered and returned to their families. In Carmen Chan's case, however, she was never returned and eventually was found deceased. My stepfather's abnormally intense interest in the news surrounding these cases always confused me, as he most certainly did not concern himself with my welfare, and there was plenty of violent news on television for him to absorb, so I had no idea why he was so interested in Mr. Cruel. He did have some other peculiar interests, as he used to own a collection of booklets printed about serial killers in our home library. I did not read them all, as I was just too young, and really had no interest in the subject at the time, but I remember a book about Jeffrey Dahmer and Ted Bundy. Of course, it's not illegal to possess, and on its own, not entirely suspicious, but if you combine it with the rest of my post, then perhaps it will appear to be a little dubious. Anyway, it wasn't until I was much older that I started to question as to why my stepfather seemed so interested in Mr. Cruel at the time. That's when I started to read up on what little information the police had on the criminal murderer. They believed that he was in the defense force, I think because of the way he was so clean and left behind no evidence, or minimal evidence. At the time of these abductions and murders, my stepbrother was in the army, but my stepfather was also a manic neat freak. He would make me wash all the hubcaps of the car with a toothbrush when I was cleaning the car, and one day he even went on a meltdown because I left a tiny ink mark on the front of a page of a newspaper while I was checking to see if a pen was working. His tidiness was a compulsion. The one piece of physical evidence that apparently Mr. Cruel left behind was a whisker, so the police thought that they were looking for a red head because the whisker was red. Both my stepfather and my stepbrother are brunette, unless they grow facial hair. They both have red facial hair. The police also thought that their suspect was from either Tasmania or New Zealand, due to some colloquialism language that the abducted girls heard. I cannot recall the exact phrase that was released to the media. I just know that when I read it at the time, I recognized it as something my stepfather and stepbrother used. They often use colloquialisms such as, "How do you like them apples?" or "How does that grab you?" in sadistic, condescending tones. This is just a couple of the many they used. Also, at the time of the abductions and abuse/murder, all of the victims were female, and all of them were the same age as myself. The last coincidence that comes to mind at the moment is the timeline. From what I read in the media, they believe that the first abductions from Mr. Cruel occurred sometime in either late August to mid-September of 1987. I cannot recall the exact date, I just remember how it made me feel to know that both my stepfather and stepbrother were both in Victoria at the same time this happened. And the last victim they believe Mr. Cruel abducted was either in September or very early October in 1992. These dates are important because against my wishes and against my stepfather's wishes, my mother insisted we move back to Tasmania, and we left Victoria on October the 5th, 1992, just after Mr. Cruel's last apparent abduction before he went quiet in Victoria. Around the same time that we moved back to Tasmania, my stepbrother moved from Victoria to Queensland. So now both my stepfather and stepbrother were no longer in Victoria, although both of them had been there during the times that Mr. Cruel was active. Both my stepfather and my stepbrother have a sadistic streak, and I honestly believe that after living with them for 13 years, that either one of them was quite capable of doing those acts. My stepbrother was, however, a little skittish and anxious when he was being abusive, but my stepfather always kept his composure. At the times that Mr. Cruel was active, we lived in the northern suburbs of Melbourne, which is where Carmen Chan's body was found, and so did my stepbrother. Her body was found only a couple of suburbs away from where we resided. My stepfather does not appear to fit the physical description of Mr. Cruel, as he's quite short, but my stepbrother does. It would not even surprise me if they acted if it was them as a pair, because each of them knew the other's fetish/sadistic behaviors, and each of them covered for each other. At the time that Mr. Cruel was active, I would also like to note that at least one of his victims stated that they could hear airplanes overhead when they were abducted. We lived in the northern suburbs of Melbourne at the time, not too far from an international airport, and underneath the flight path of many of the flights. Also, one of the descriptions of a room that one of the girls was kept in matches up with what I can remember from one of my stepbrother's rooms when he was living out of our home for a while. My stepbrother never lived on the barracks when we moved to Melbourne. He either rented his own place or he moved back in with us for a while. The only time I recall that he lived on base was just before we moved back to Tasmania. At this time, he was married and was working as a chef at the communications depot. Because this depot was so small and in a rural area, and because he was married, he was provided a house on the depot site to live in with his wife of the time. Because he was a chef and the depot was so small, he was the only chef that I was aware of, so it was essential that he be able to be on site to cook breakfast, lunch, and dinners. So living at that depot was pretty essential. I also recall this really odd behavior, which may not have anything to do with the case, but it was not uncommon to find him vacuuming his house or hanging washing out the back to dry at 1 a.m. This may have something to do with him being a chef and working hours that were different than most, just getting household chores done when he could. But he was also an extreme neat freak, and I hated spending time there to keep his wife company because as a 16-year-old, I did not appreciate being woken up to help vacuum or hang washing up so late at night. I mentioned all of this to a police officer years ago. All I can recall was that she was part of a task force at the time. She did ask me to get back to her, but I had a house fire and lost her contact details. Since then, I have never been able to locate them again, and I have no idea what her name was. I really don't remember, although I really wish I did. I truly believe that one of them, if not both of them, were involved in this whole Mr. Cruel incident. It terrifies me to think that perhaps their dislike for me, or their passion to be sadistic towards myself, is possibly why they chose targets that were brunette and of the same age as myself. There's a saying in Australia, which is, you don't shit where you eat, which means if you are going to commit a crime, you don't do it in your backyard because it's just too close to your home. So the thought of them lashing out at these young ladies instead of myself is just sickening. Of course, I have no definite proof on me, or they/he would most certainly be in prison as I type this. Obviously, I have nothing to do with them at all anymore. Whenever I was abused, it was either psychological and sadistic, which is just impossible to prove to authorities unless there is a non-biased witness, or the abuse never left any marks on my body, which again is pretty difficult to prove. My mother once told me when I was 14 that if I ever went to the police, she would lie, and then she asked me who I thought a judge would believe, her or a teenage girl. I was terrified to go to the authorities because I thought no one would believe me, and then the aftermath would be much worse for me. Since then, however, I have had my stepbrother charged, and he did end up spending some time in jail for some of the crimes committed against me, although most of them have gone unpunished. I don't hold any malice about that, and am impressed that the Victorian police were able to put together a case on what information they had, and that they were able to charge him at all. This does not alleviate my concerns about the Mr. Cruel cases though. There are so many coincidences that I find frightening. 1. The intense interest in media coverage of the cases. 2. All of the victims being the same age and same hair color as myself. 3. Living in an approximate area where he was committing the crimes. 4. Their facial hair being the same as the samples found at the crime scene. 5. Their colloquialisms that match Mr. Cruel's pattern of speech, and many, many more. I guess all of these coincidences don't really amount to a criminal case, but it has left me feeling ill, terrified, and with no one to talk to about this. I did try to mention it to my biological father once, a few years ago, but I think he just thought perhaps that I was overreacting, as he was not aware of the abuse I had endured as a child. I never told him about any of this. Even when my stepbrother was charged and went to jail, my biological father had no idea why, and had no idea that my mother was aware, and that his father was also part of it all. I can't shake the horrible feeling that I feel like I was raised by a serial abuser and a murderer who had no problem in taking the life of a young girl. I know that either of them are capable of such actions, although if I was asked to choose which one I thought it would most likely be, the physical attributes match my stepbrother, but the calmness of Mr. Cruel is something that was more often displayed by my stepfather. So I don't really know. But I am very sure that one of them, if not both of them, were involved in this case. I just don't know who to approach who will take all of this seriously. I also have a family of my own now, and I don't want them to hear about any of it. I have to be careful because I don't want to expose my children to these kinds of images/thoughts. Lastly, I would just like to add, for those who question as to whether or not my thought process about this situation are stable, I had to be psychologically assessed as part of the legal requirements when I had charges pressed against my stepbrother. The courts need to assure that the person making those kinds of allegations are mentally aware of their accusations, and that there is no sign of mental illness where they may have misinterpreted a situation. Yes, there are psychological effects. I suffer from PTSD, but honestly, if you knew the true horrors of the home I grew up in, then you would be amazed if anyone could endure such upbringing and walk out of that home without any emotional baggage. If anyone who reads this knows of a person amongst the Victorian Police Task Force who would be interested in talking with me, I have no problems with this, and would appreciate a way to contact them. As I type this, I am sitting here shaking, as I recall my old home and what those poor girls had to endure, and poor Carmen, who probably did nothing wrong other than to view his face. My heart goes out to her family, but I am so scared that her family would bear a grudge towards me, even though I have had nothing to do with the whole situation, and was the same age as their Carmen. Grief can make someone view perspectives differently. I would be ashamed to face them, unless I was able to assist them in getting some kind of justice. I have not mentioned any names, other than that of Carmen Chan, who was one of his victims. I have not mentioned exact suburbs or exact information, as if this is of interest to the police, I don't want to jeopardize any possible investigation and outcome by posting information publicly before an official investigation is done, nor do I want to cause any possible biased opinions, as this could affect the outcome of a court hearing. I am not saying that my step-family members will ever be charged or go to court, or that they are definitely guilty, but I will not take the risk of ruining any chances of possible justice, just so I can tell my story on Reddit. Thanks for reading. Perhaps someone will respond with some kind of information or advice. As stated before, we have covered and talked about Mr. Cruel in a dedicated video before this. But for those of you who are new here, let me give you a bit of an explanation as to who Mr. Cruel is. Mr. Cruel is the moniker given to a man who committed a disturbingly targeted wave of attacks from 1988 to 1991 in the Victoria area of Australia, targeting and stalking multiple young girls for kidnapping, and only 4 of his victims are confirmed, but it's reported that the police believe that he has over 30 victims over the course of 5 years, up until 1991, when his last victim, Carmen Chan, was found dead with 3 gunshot wounds to the back of her head. The police have no idea who this person could be, as stated in Corrupted's post. The police only found a single red hair, and nothing more. Mr. Cruel was a ghost, and to this day we know very little about him. The case is extremely cold, but still ongoing. With most of the current suspects getting old, there's not much time left to have whoever he was face justice. But this post isn't exactly something to write off. A lot of what she brings up does fit Mr. Cruel's MO and could be a real possibility. Even if not, it is one of the more disturbing posts I've read on Reddit, and was an unfortunate find while doing my research for the Mr. Cruel video. This post, unfortunately, is not the only one like it, however. On May 8th of 2024, user JumpyCantaloupe648 would make a post directly to r/Mr. Cruel. I have some suspension my dad is Mr. Cruel. I'm not sure how crazy this will sound, but let's try and get some opinions. I was born in 1985. My memories are very vague and distant. I don't exactly remember the story on the news, but as soon as I saw the photo, I knew I had been face to face with it. Anyway, let's get to my reasons. Here's my top 10. 1. The locations of the assaults were all places near where my dad worked. 2. Occasionally, my dad would borrow from family members a video camera, but I never saw him use it. 3. He drove the same make and model described in the articles I read. 4. There is violent and SA offenders in my family history on my dad's side. 5. I have a blank memory from my childhood, where I got out of bed to find someone and I saw something that caused me to run and my dad chased me. By the time my mother saw this, I couldn't remember what I had seen. This led to my parents' divorce approximately 6 months later, which corresponds perfectly with Mr. Cruel's final kill. 6. The police released many sketches over the years with different hairstyles based on witnesses. One in particular is virtually a photo. 7. My dad is weirdly obsessed with food. He always has been. He would always make sure he ate and everyone around him ate. He would virtually force feed. So Mr. Cruel always feeding his victims and himself makes sense. The way it is reported Mr. Cruel acts, personality-wise, describes my dad. While he never touched me sexually, he would glare, stare, and check me out and all my friends. He would insist on reaching over them to put their seatbelts on. My dad is deceptively intelligent. He's very good at science. He would be the sort of person to know exactly how not to leave a trace. So, am I nuts for thinking this could be a possibility? This one has a lot less in it when it comes down to detail, and the mention of one of the police drawings matching their dad, almost like a photo, is also a bit of a red flag, that this one is fake. As the police sketches are only of a man in a balaclava, no one has ever actually seen Mr. Cruel's face, and the only person who is believed to have is dead. There are countless stories like this on r/Mr. Cruel, many people believing that it could have been their father, their brother, or a neighbor. It is unfortunate to see, but it just goes to show how many evil people in the world go unchecked. Unfortunately, there are no resolutions to these Reddit posts, as the case, as stated prior, is cold and has been cold for some time. But if you would like to learn more about this case and the rabbit hole, I would recommend you to check out my video on it if you haven't seen it already. r/RBI, a Reddit board dedicated to helping people with real investigations within their day-to-day lives. People post here constantly with many different issues: missing people, possible murders, hit and runs, you name it. Users put up posts here mainly out of fear of escalation, or to see if they need to escalate to law enforcement, being unsure of what to do. One of the more common posts I see every time I visit, especially from women unfortunately, is stalking cases. On December 13th of 2025, user thenfan5835 would go onto the subreddit and make a post. I might be being watched. Today when I was about to jump in the shower, I heard an Android phone notification go off. I have an iPhone. The sound came from within the room. It was too clear and audible to be in another room in the apartment. What concerns me is, it's not the first time I have heard a phone notification go off while I'm in the bathroom, naked, before a shower. There's only been one other instance, and it was an Android notification again. After I heard it, I looked around the bathroom trying to find a hidden phone somewhere, but nothing. I didn't dig super hard because being the first time, I thought maybe I was just being paranoid. I should mention I don't live by myself. I'm a 21-year-old girl and I live with my parents and uncle in an apartment. So it is definitely possible for someone to purposefully leave a phone in the bathroom. A couple months back, I was in my bedroom with one of the lights off and I thought I saw a tiny blue dot coming from the bottom area of my closet. The only way I can describe it is a blinking light, but it was like it was only for a second, then it disappeared. I looked around my closet and nothing. I'm a pretty laid back person, so I honestly didn't think much of it and just thought I was imagining it. But I know deep down I actually saw and heard those things. Does anyone have any suggestions to find a hidden phone somewhere? I looked around already and didn't find anything. As unfortunate as it is, this case is all too common, and cases like this constantly get posted onto the Reddit. Most of them rarely get resolved, as outside of leaving the place it's happening or getting the police involved, there's not much for people to do. It's a scary thought, having the paranoia that someone within your home, someone within your own family, may be stalking you and invading your privacy in the worst way possible. At this point, many in the comments were suggesting that she may just be paranoid, or to check using Bluetooth Finder apps. But this wasn't the end of the post, as the user would go on to update the post multiple times over the next coming days. Update. I did leave updates on the subreddit for those who are wondering what happened. Thank you to everyone for their suggestions. My purpose for posting this here was to be able to find the phone. I can't prove anything unless I can find where the phone is being hidden when I'm in the bathroom. Everyone's suggestions were very helpful. I won't be making any more updates for now since a lot of people just think I'm lying about it, like I actually get anything out of this. I will let you know if I ever find where the phone is being hidden. I do plan on letting my whole family know if I ever find proof. I just can't let him keep naked videos of me. I'm going to stay with a friend in the meantime, and I will try moving out in the next month if I can. Update 12:15. I found the phone. I heard it going off in the bathroom this morning and found it just looking out from the top of a shelf. It wasn't hidden at all. And I am telling you, the 2 times I looked before, I was looking on top and in the same shelf, and it wasn't there. It had 2% battery on it and it died. Someone left it there on purpose this morning. This phone is my mom's old phone and I suspected my uncle, but I guess his phone and the burner in the bathroom have the same ringtone, so I'm not sure anymore. Unless him or my dad had it on them when I heard it in the dining room last night. Whenever I talk to anyone about this in person, I keep getting dismissed. I try to talk to my cousin and boyfriend about it, but they keep asking if I'm sure and saying no one has a reason to do that. This is very frustrating and I don't know what I am to do anymore. The fact I found the actual phone means no, I wasn't just hearing the sound carrying over from another room. I 100% believe someone in this house is leaving that phone in there for something malicious. Everyone here has their own privacy in their bedrooms to stash anything there if it's for the purpose of cheating. My uncle has his own room, no one ever goes in there besides him, and my mom and my dad are not together. They just live together for my sake, so my dad doesn't need to hide anything from her. My dad also has places he could store the phone, and my mom or anyone else would never see because no one ever goes through his things. For now, I just put the phone back, but there was no SIM card in it, and I don't know the password for it. I think they know I started looking for it and left it out there for me to find. I'm leaving pictures of the phone and how I found it. The user found the phone up at the top of the cabinet that's in the restroom. Multiple people in the comments of the post have come to either one of 2 conclusions. Either someone is using the phone as a secret burner for some reason, or someone is using the phone to record the original poster. The later being the most nefarious, but both being pretty strange. The last update we would get would be in the form of a comment the user made as a response. It's your uncle, cousin, or boyfriend, or a combination of them. What they're doing is very fucking illegal, and if any of it is going out on the internet, even just sending an email qualifies as revenge porn. Take the battery out and snap a pic of the barcodes and numbers. There may be a way to find out who bought it. I'd also recommend searching your uncle's room when you get a chance. The fact that your cousin and BF are being dismissive of your concerns means at best, they're assholes who don't care about you, but more than likely, one or more of them is taking video of you nude for what is hopefully just personal spank material. You deserve to be safe in your own home and not have your privacy violated. You have anyone you can trust who could help you with this? I know, I broke up with my boyfriend after that happened. I guess a lot of people just don't think that's a big deal, which is insane to me. Sadly, I don't think there is anyone else to help me. But I am moving to a different state with a friend in August, so I'm just holding on till then. But that would be all we get from there. No updates have been made since then, but as we can assume from what the user has said, she'll be out of there by August. Hopefully, nothing else happens within that time period. r/RBI has many cases come and go within the subreddit daily. Some get solved, some get help, and some go without answers for years. Some of the most heartbreaking are the missing persons and cold cases. 2 years ago, a post would be made on r/RBI by user Def Lemon that caught my attention while scrolling, as it's a bit of a long one and quite the rabbit hole. My friend went missing in June 2020. His skeletal remains were found 1 year later. Police never told his family he had called 911 and stated his location. We would have gone there to find him. He could have still been alive. My friend Kyle Donovan went missing in June 2020. A missing persons report was filed the next day in the city of his residence, Olathe, Kansas. A little over a year later, his remains were found by a KDOT employee. Because of COVID, DNA identification was behind, though the officers told his family that based on the items found, they were 90% sure it was him. At the time, the police also informed his mother that he had placed a 3-minute 911 call the night he went missing. He clearly states his location, but they never went to look for him. They didn't cross-reference the missing persons report with the unresolved 911 call so that they could have given his mother his actual location. We searched on foot and with a drone for him where he had told his brother he was prior to his 911 call. That place, a bridge over Kansas River, is within seeing distance of his final resting place. We were so focused on the river because that's where he said he was when he talked to his brother earlier. They even threw an 80-pound feed bag off the bridge to watch which direction it went. If KCPD had told us about the 911 call when the missing persons report was filed, we could have gone directly to him. He could still have been alive. Here's a link to a video with the portions of the 911 call. It took 8 months from the time of his body's discovery to finally get the positive DNA results, but the medical investigator ruled his cause of death as inconclusive, even though he clearly states, "They are trying to kill me," in the audio. Something is just so wrong about this. I don't understand how this happened. The police won't give his family any more information because it's an ongoing case, but not a murder investigation, so why the secrecy? It would be extremely helpful to hear any theories or even similar cases from the area. He went missing in Kansas City, and his missing persons report was filed in Olathe. You may come across some information about him possibly having schizophrenia. Kyle had a highly stressful job, was in a volatile relationship, and had a past history of drug use. Kyle's mom tried to give every bit of information she could when filing the missing persons report, but deeply regrets ever mentioning that he may have had mental health issues. He had experienced a bout of psychosis years prior. That may have been drug/alcohol/stress related. His mom blames herself for possibly creating a bias against him, and thinks his case may have not been prioritized due to her statement. Please feel free to Google his name, Kyle Chase Donovan, for more information. Sheree Honeycutt with Fox 4 Kansas City has been a great advocate for him, and there are several other stories/videos she has produced with good info too. Thank you. Let's go ahead and take a look at that call.
Severe emergency.
The rail yard on 18th Street Expressway.
What? Say that again?
The trail, or excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm in danger.
Okay, where?
At 18th Street Expressway and I-70, where the train yard is.
And I-70, okay. And what's going on there?
There in the city, some people made me feel like they were my friends, and I honestly feel like my life is in danger, and they tried to kill me, sir. And they tried it, and they tried their hardest, and now I'm laying down like it's a war zone, and I'm right here north side of the rail yard on I-70, right before 18th Street Expressway. My name is Kyle Donovan, D-U-N-I-V.
Hold on 1 second. What's your first name is Kyle?
Yes, sir.
And what's your last name?
D-U.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Donovan, D-U-N-I-V-A-N.
And where are you from?
Right here in Kansas City.
Okay. Kansas City, Kansas, or Missouri?
My house, my residence is in Douglas County, south of Lawrence. That's where I rent my house for my 2 children, my sons.
Okay, so you got to know some people?
Yeah, because I'm trying to leave my wife after 10 years because she won't stop pressing my buttons, and I'm sick of my boys seeing us fight. So I tried to get away from them at work.
So these people pretended to be your friend?
Well, I don't know, sir. That's why I'm calling you. I don't know the facts for sure, but I know I got you.
But you said they're trying to kill you now?
No, I don't know for sure. But when I see one of your boys in blue, I'll explain the whole story.
Okay. Well,
and just so you know, they made me think they were my friends, and they made me think they actually cared about me. So I brought everything that is registered in my name, and I'm not a felon. I have registered firearms, and they have them there. Excuse me, I'll explain the whole story, sir.
Okay.
If you get somebody here with a squad car.
Well, I'm going to get more information before I send anybody so I know what we're getting into. And what can you see?
I genuinely hate that most of the cold cases I cover have this strange air of police negligence to them. This feels off. In Kansas, the police don't have the requirement to show up to every call, but their response does depend on the severity, location, and resources available to them at the time of the call. Different states have different laws about this. For instance, the state that I live in, it is required for police to show up to every call. But seeing as how he clearly states they're trying to kill me in the call, it's highly suspicious that this was not treated as a severe case, especially since there was a mention of guns being present. The rest of what we know of the case ends up coming from speculation within the comments section from both other users and the original poster. I'm sorry the call information from KCKS wasn't relayed sooner. I live in KCKS and sometimes use that on/off ramp. Did he take guns with him, and have all of his guns and vehicles been accounted for? Mentioning mental health or drug use can be helpful. It lets people know where to look. He took them to the house he stopped at, coworker's house, in a work truck, and left on foot without the guns or his money from there. He called his brother from 18th Street Expressway Bridge, but then must have wandered down to the train yard near Bayard Avenue when he placed the 911 call. I should add he also brought a bunch of random stuff, a lamp, some books. He was leaving his wife. They had been fighting. It's possible he intended to stay with the coworker. It's heartbreaking. This family hasn't gotten anything more than a previously unreleased phone call and almost no information of what happened. If the police didn't press the coworkers more than what is being stated here, I'd honestly be a little shocked. How would they have all this stuff and not be questioned about what happened? Where are the guns? And how hasn't this been pressed on more? Unfortunately, this case so far has had only one update in the last 2 years. Update/edit. I have published the full 911 call to YouTube for you all here and removed the personal information contained. Please go have a look at the video. Thank you. I really truly believe someone else was nearby Kyle during the call, and I truly believe I can hear that person saying, "What are you gonna do, bitch?" Then Kyle apologizes. It is my theory that he was injured and hiding from someone when calling 911. He doesn't say that he's hurt, but he says they tried to kill him. I think he's in shock and trying to stay quiet, but also trying to get the point across that he's in serious need of help, which is why I believe he is being so polite and respectful. Additionally, this all took place right as the BLM and the defund the police movements were heating up. Kansas City was a hotspot for protests and some rioting. One theory is that the dispatcher could have believed Kyle was trying to lure police to a secluded spot to ambush. Anyway, I have been trying to answer questions as I have time. I want you all to know how much everyone's comments have meant to me and Kyle's mom. I sent her the link to this thread, so she's here now following along. You have no idea how much your words have renewed a sense of hope in us. Thank you all so much. Additionally, I have been reaching out to private investigation firms today, and once I have an idea on costs, I will be doing some fundraising for Kyle's family. I likely won't be able to post a link here, but you can check my profile for info if you would like to help. Kyle's family was not given access to the Victims of Violent Crimes Fund in our state because his cause of death was ruled inconclusive with no pending murder investigation. Thank you all again. If you have any recommendations for something that you want covered, please go ahead and join the Discord and let us know. And if you liked the video, then leave a like and tell me what you think down below. Anyways, thank you for watching, and have a good night.